Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Deep Beauty Podcast. I'm so excited you guys are here for today's podcast guest. I'm super excited to have on. This is Suhani Parikh. So she is an award-winning author. And this is the thing that caught my eye about her is that she published a book called Shreya's Very Own Style about a little Indian girl with alopecia, which was something that I had never seen before. And that just intrigued me right away. And she's the owner of Modern Marigold Books, as well as the new co-owner of Samba Sivan and Parikh. So thank you so much, Suhani, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Deepa. This is so wonderful. I'm so excited we're finally doing this.
I know. We've been kind of playing phone tag or like Instagram direct message tag to try to get this to happen. But I'm super glad that we got to do this as well. So I want to get into a little bit about your history with hair loss. If you could just share with everybody what your story is.
Sure, yeah. I started developing alopecia at the age of 4. My mom really noticed it as dime-sized little spots kind of like in my really thick. I had like that stereotypical like really thick Indian hair. I got it like from my mom. My mom also has like, even till date, she had like really thick hair. And she saw it and she knew exactly what it was because my dad actually was diagnosed with alopecia totalis, or would it be universalis? It would actually be universalis. That's what my dad has. He was diagnosed with that a little bit later on in life, probably like after his 20s, I would say. And his sister, my Faiba, she also has alopecia as well, and she was diagnosed with alopecia later on in life as well.
Okay.
And so when she saw that, she immediately knew what it was. My dad knew what it was, and they were like, all right, well, we'll see. My parents have this attitude of just take it as it comes, like don't fret too much about it, like you'll figure it out as you go. So it sort of just kind of stayed that way all through elementary school. I grew up with this like long thick hair, and I used to love like styling it and like and the only times like I really noticed that I had like something was going on is like when I would like play with my hair, like if I was tying a ponytail, I would feel like a smooth little patch of like something. And I was always very like aware that they were there, but you couldn't see anything. And so it never really bugged me. But then towards the end of elementary school and like right before, like that's when it really started to kind of take full form. And I started losing hair like right at my hairline, like right at my part, like right here, like in the book where Shreya is losing her hair, it was like right here. And you can't really hide that spot on your head. Like there's no hairstyle you can do to hide that, right? So I used to like, I had bangs, and so I would like kind of like crisscross them and try to like do it so you couldn't really see. But it was like a pretty like it was like a pretty big spot right
Was
there,
was it like a bald patch or was it like thinning in that area?
Oh, it was like bald. Like I
Oh,
had no,
wow.
like I've shared this photo on Facebook. It's like one of my school photos. And you can see like I like the photographer, actually I remember him kind of like playing with my bangs so he could like try to hide the spot a little bit. And I very well remember that. I think it was like my 5th or 6th grade photo. But you can see that there's like a patch of missing hair here, and I have like bangs and like a full head of hair otherwise. So that's when it really entered my life and started to, I knew it was like something I would just like have to figure out a way to live with. Like I was just living with this, and I knew what it was too. Like I saw my dad. Like my dad had no hair. My aunt had no hair, and she wore a wig and things. So I already knew what it was. So, and then in middle school is when it all just fell out. Like I lost my eyebrows, I lost my hair, my eyelashes like managed to stay on all these years. They started falling out this year, like last year basically, which is like the oddest thing. But I always had my eyelashes, my eyebrows did all sorts of funky things and kind of fell off. And and then my hair, that's when I started wearing a wig. And my mom sort of was like, do you want like what do you want to do about this? Like, do you want to just like rock it as it is, or do you want to go get a wig? And I was like, no, I think I want to get a wig, because I'm just like, I didn't even know like how to talk about it, and that's really was the point of writing Shreya's Very Own Style, is to give families living with alopecia, give children living with alopecia some way to talk about it, and to say like, it's okay to just say what it is if you're comfortable with saying it. I always had this fear like, oh my God, if they ask me, like, what's going on with your hair? Like, what do I even say? Like, how do I even go into like what alopecia is? And it felt like such a huge thing to have to explain to someone.
Yeah.
So, so that's sort of the beginning of my journey with alopecia.
So that's really interesting that that your dad had it and that your aunt had it as well. So you came from a history of like having a family that had to deal with this. How how was that with your childhood, like with your upbringing? Were because I know like in some families it can be such a shameful thing and it's just like just try to hide, it, especially in some brown communities and stuff. But in your experience with the fact that your dad and your aunt had it, how were you raised with it? Like what was sort of like the approach to it, dealing
Yeah.
with it?
My family is definitely not that stereotypical kind of brown family and that I guess that stereotypical mindset, I would say. And I hate to say that because all families are very different and there's no
Yeah.
one that the whole community goes by. But my yeah, because my dad had alopecia for a number of years at that point, and he never, I mean, I think he tried treatments for a certain amount of time and he felt like the cortisone injections were so painful. He just like stopped.
Mhm.
He's like, it's not even worth doing. Like, it's just so painful. It's like stopping so many other things in my life just to try to grow my hair back. So we just stopped. And we were so used to seeing him like that. Like, it was not a weird thing or like an odd thing or something that anyone tried to hide. He was just like going about his day, his life, going to work, coming back, like being a dad, doing all
Mhm.
things. And he just had no hair on his head, or he had just like a couple strands of eyebrows, or like a couple things of hair sticking up. So it's it was just such a normal thing in my family. Like we never hair was never something we talked about. Like it wasn't until I was much older and I was when you're young, I mean for me, like I didn't spend much time with other families like outside of my own. Like I
Okay.
didn't go for a lot of sleepovers. Like I didn't go to a lot of my friends' house. Like I had friends that came over sometimes. But
Mhm.
other than that, it was kind of like I was at home. Like we grew up in a business. My mom was operating like a small motel. And so we were just there, like we had our chores, come back, help her with rooms, and like went about our homework and stuff. And so I didn't spend time with a lot of other families until I was a lot older. Like I would say after college, and when I was like with my husband's family or like other, friends' families. And I realized that like some people, some families, like a topic of conversation is hair. Like I never experienced that up until that point where like people are just like casually like sitting around like discussing like hair or like things about hair. Like I don't even know, like someone's hair or like things about hair, like this person's hair is like this, or like do this to your hair for this. I never grew up around that. So my mom would put like oil in my hair, but we never like talked about extensively about my condition or about hair or it was just like not really a factor in my upbringing. Like we just like it was just like, this is something Suhani has. She they were always very supportive in how I wanted to go about it. So like if I wanted to try a treatment or if I wanted to wear a wig or if whatever, they were always just like, all right, we'll do what makes you comfortable living with alopecia. So
Okay.
that was sort of my experience growing up with it. It was never like oh my God, Suhani, don't like someone's coming in the house, like go put your wig on.
Yeah.
It was never like that. It was more like that was coming from me. Like they knew like if someone was coming over, tell Suhani someone's here so she can go wear a wig or go in her room if she doesn't want to come down or if she
Yeah.
doesn't want to like get dressed or something. So that's kind of what it was. Yeah.
I think it's pretty powerful, like the confidence that your dad had, like just like the fact that you grew up with that as an example, like he was just rocking the way it was,
Yeah.
like not like trying to hide it or anything like that. I
Yeah.
think that that's a pretty great example. So what was it in that particular like the your upbringing that made you want to write a book? I know we talked a little bit about like you writing the book, but like what was it in particular that made you think, okay, like you know what, this is something that because you said that it's shared in classrooms and teachers are teaching it to their students and stuff, which is amazing. Like
Yeah.
that's so good to hear. But like yeah, so like what led to that?
I would say like when I thought about writing for the first time, I was a mom. I had my twin girls. They were like around a year and a half at that time when I first had this idea to like pursue writing. And writing was always something I always grew up loving reading and writing. And like I was always I always like wrote my journals and diaries, and I experimented with stories and had all these things like living in my head. And so I finally was like, I have time. I'm not working outside the home. I'm the, raising my two kids, and I have this like I have pockets of free time where I can like, where I could work on something like this. And so in that time when I was thinking about, what was really meaningful for me and what do I want to write about and what stories do I want to share, my journey with alopecia and now having daughters who I want to share these like lessons that I've learned, and
Mhm.
up until that point I had grown confident in that I was no longer afraid to share that I had alopecia. I wasn't so like, confident in like going without a wig down the street or like going to the store or stepping out of my house or whatnot.
Yeah.
But longer was I no longer didn't know how to tell someone about it, or didn't shy away from that opportunity to say like, oh yeah, I do have this. Or if someone asked me like, oh, is that like what's up with your eyebrows? So at that time I penciled on my eyebrows, and so people would ask like, why are you penciling in your eyebrows? And so I was telling them like, I have alopecia and I don't have eyebrows. And now the products are so great. Like I have these awesome like 4D like tattoo, like 3D tattoo,
Yeah.
like eyebrow things. It's amazing. Like,
It's incredible.
yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like people, kids who get alopecia, who like are developing alopecia at this point in time, have
Mhm.
so many resources available to
Yes.
them. And I wish I had that growing up, because it would have made it so much easier to, just be supported with those things. But yeah, so I knew that I wanted to tell a story about alopecia. Getting back to the point. And I guess transfer style was a culmination of my entire journey with alopecia over the course of, 30 years of, having this condition. And I was like, okay, this is what I've learned, is that even though I have alopecia and it is a part of me, it's not all of me. And I
Mhm.
don't need to and I don't need to give any more power to it than that. It's just
Yeah.
a part of my life. It's just a part of me. But there are so many other things that are bigger than that. And so I'm gonna focus on those things. And that was always a message my parents gave to me. It's like, Suhani, like, okay, Joe, this is going on with your hair, but like let- let's let's focus your energy on like something else you love to do. So whether it's calligraphy, whether it's drawing, whether I was always a very creative person growing up, and I loved arts and crafts, and that was what they pushed me toward. They're like, you love that, go. Like here's everything you can. Like they bought me everything you could think of to do all of these things I love to do, like from calligraphy classes to like bead sets to like sticker collection things. I don't know, like all the things. And so, my life just got filled up with those creative things, and
Mhm.
it helped take my mind off of it. And so I guess the message of this whole story was of the story I want to tell was that you can have alopecia and not be consumed by it. Like it can just be a piece of you, and it's as simple as that.
It doesn't
And
define you. Yeah.
doesn't is not the only defining thing about you. So let's give more weight to those other things that you cannot see about a person.
I love that.
Um, and so that was the whole, idea of Streisand style.
That's such a touching message. I really love it. How
Thank
has the response been? Like, has there been any children that you know with alopecia that where the parents and the child have like read the book together? Like, have you seen any like sort of impact from the book happening?
Yeah. I've gotten such an amazing, that's honestly the only mark of success I care about, is when, a parent reached out to me and says like, oh my God, my my child's alopecia, and they're just obsessed with Shreya. They're just obsessed with story, and they just like are so happy because it's not just someone living with alopecia areata, but even a child or someone who has alopecia universalis or telos. It's like stages to get to that point, right? Like your hair just doesn't like magically fall out overnight, or
Mhm.
like you have full head of hair one day and you're bald the next day. It doesn't happen
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And so that patchy hair loss is just such a common stance in the alopecia journey. And so it's so relatable to really anyone, anyone who's going through alopecia. And so, yeah, just like I've so many parents have reached out to me, grandparents have reached out to me, saying like that, they got this book for their grandchild. Teachers have gotten it for students in their classroom.
Mhm.
I during the pandemic, so I published a book, actually released it during the pandemic,
Mhm.
and it was like at the end of 2020 that the book released. And I was the only way I could share it with classrooms was in the form of virtual visits. And it was
Mhm.
great because I would these teachers would schedule like, me for a Zoom session with like literally like 5 classrooms or 6 classrooms.
Oh, wow.
And there were like hundreds of kids on this call. I had one call with like 140 children on the call. It was like math, it was like huge amount of kids like was tuning into this story time of Shreya's Random Style. And I was like, oh my God, through this one like 10 minutes, I'm reaching like almost 150 young minds. Like that's with this message, and like they no doubt are going to know someone, so I had that. And then I got an email from from the parent who kind of coordinated for the school.
Mhm.
And she said that there was a little girl who had alopecia and she was Indian in the Zoom call.
Mhm.
And she loved soccer, and Shreya, like in the story, loved soccer. And like throughout the whole thing, she was like, "That's me. That's like me. That's like me."
Oh.
Like the whole time, you're like, "I know what the volley is. Like, I know what that is. Like, I love soccer. And so it's
Oh my God, I literally have like goosebumps right
it's
now.
goosebumps.
That's
It's
oh,
honestly
that's
that's
so
what happened.
touching. So 6 years ago, I lost 70% of my hair due to alopecia areata. It happened within the span of 5 months, and I had bald patches, general overall thinning. It was falling out in clumps. It was so super scary. I had no idea what was going on. The only time I had ever heard of alopecia was my one makeup client who had lost all of her hair. She lost her hair off the top of her head, her brows, her lashes, all over her body. She had no hair. I was so scared that I was headed down that same road. So I started to call all of my doctor and dermatologist friends that I knew, and the suggestions they gave for regrowing your hair was to use treatments like steroid injections or steroid creams, minoxidil, those kinds of things. But the problem with those was that they weren't A, guaranteed to work, and B, they weren't guaranteed to last. So I happened to somehow stumble upon the phone number for the head dermatologist for the Navy. And we were both surprised when he picked up the phone. But what he told me came as a total shock to me. He said that your hair is going to do whatever it is going to do, regardless of all the treatments that you're going to try. So, what you really need to do is get down to the root issue of why it happened in the first place. That's when I went on full research mode. I scoured every single article that I could find on the internet. I watched all the YouTube videos, and what I found was a total surprise to me. That you could actually regrow your hair by healing your body. So that is what I went on a mission to do. I started to read everything I could on nutrition, on autoimmune disease, on stress management, on lifestyle, and I implemented all of these things week by week. I was implementing something new, and within 3 to 5 months, all my hair loss stopped and my hair started to regrow. It just felt like a total miracle to me. And it was just something that I wanted to share with everyone and anyone that would listen to me. That's when I started to post videos on it, and the response was crazy. I didn't realize that so many of you were going through hair loss as well. So it has become my mission to help as many of you that I can regrow your hair. And not only that, but prevent future fallout. That's why I created the 3 Steps to Regrow Your Hair masterclass, as well as all the resources on my website. You can head over to deepabarad.com/links to watch the free masterclass. Once again, that's deepabarad.com/links. I'm going to put the link in the show notes below, and let's head back over to this episode now.
That is like the only thing that matters in like this whole journey I'm on. Like, since then I've, started this publishing company, and where I've just released my 6th picture book under this company. And that's the only thing that matters, honestly, is like creating really good stories for kids that actually touches like a part of them, and like is going to be an impactful part of their childhood, and
Mhm.
and better the way that they view themselves. So it's really an incredible feeling to
I
know
love
that
that.
it's touching children's lives in that way. So
So
yeah.
with your character Shreya, you said that you've published other books. Have they like continued on with her story, or do you have plans for doing that?
That was my initial thought of, creating this series around Shreya, but it never ended up taking, hold. After Shreya, I did a book on called Bina's Bina the Bookworm, and that's about a little bookworm who's like learning how to read. And then I did a story called Sandwiches and Samosas, which is about two girls who love eating Indian food at home but are afraid to bring them to school because everybody
Oh,
else eats sandwiches in the classroom in the cafeteria, and so they only will take sandwiches to school. And that was also based off of my personal experience, like never wanting to take anything but a sandwich to school for lunch.
yeah.
Um, and so I released that book, and then I was approached by an author with the idea of Dancing Davy, which became my first book as a traditional publisher. So Dancing Davy was released in 2022, and it was the first book that I published of another author's. And since then, I just published my third author's book, which it's an incredible feeling to
Wow.
help other authors, you know, bring their stories to life.
That is amazing. And I love
But
that
hopefully, maybe one day we'll have Shreya, like another book in Shreya's next chapter. I'm not sure. Let's see.
anything's possible. But yeah, no, I love the fact that you've gotten like all these like, books that are really helping little brown girls out there everywhere that are just, struggling with things that like we grew up struggling with. So that's pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're
It's
welcome.
good work. I really enjoy the work. I feel like I've found, like, the reason that I'm here is to like create these stories and to do this work. And so it's a good feeling to have for sure.
How were your own kids when you were writing this book or when you were releasing this book? Like were they like super excited? Like did they know what was happening?
Oh yeah. I mean, they were very, very young when I started. My girls were a year and a half, but they're now 7 years old. And they're very aware of what I do, and they're very proud of what I do too. They're always like, "Oh, my mommy makes picture books, and like, my mommy's a publisher and she works with authors, illustrators." And they make me sound way bigger than I am, honestly. Like I walk into the kids' school and they're like, and their teacher's like, "Wow, so you're like you run a pretty big company." I'm like, not really. No, but just a little, few years in, doing my work. But no, they're very proud of the work I do, and they're very involved in the process too. They're always, they're who I run every book idea by. They hear all the book manuscripts first. I read it out to them. They're also avid readers, just like I was growing up. And it's all for them, honestly. Like all of this is for them. So, and because of them too. I don't think I would have ever had the idea to write Shreya's Random Self. I wasn't a mom and wanted to share. That was one thing I always thought of, is like, what if one day they grow up and they develop alopecia? Like, how do I live my life, or how do I talk to them about this that will help make it easier,
Yeah.
you know? And so again, back to my dad, like living his life, just like going about his day to day. Like I realized that I had to just start living my life comfortably with this condition. And so
Yeah.
I started not wearing my wig at home, being okay talking about it, writing this book, sharing it openly. Like all of these things are just, and now my daughter, even Nasa always says, she's like, "Mommy, I want to wear a wig." I'm like, "Honey, you can do whatever you want when you're older. You don't have to lose your hair to wear a wig. You can wear a wig anyways." And she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, but I want to look like you." And
Oh,
I'm like, I know. Like,
oh
so
my gosh.
it just shows that, they notice what we're doing.
Hmm.
Kids notice what is going on around them, how parents are acting, how the way I notice my dad is the way that they're noticing me. And so it makes me feel really good that
Well,
I'm
you setting a
I'm
great
setting
example.
that example for them of,
Yeah.
strength. So if alopecia ever becomes a part of their life, that hopefully they have that to lean on. So
Yeah, for sure. That's amazing. So yeah, so I guess like now what I would like to know from you is like, what have you tried? Where are you at with your hair loss? Because it looks like to me, like from what I can see, it looks like you have a lot of hair.
I do. Yeah. I have like this whole corner never really grows in, like if you can see. And then same with this side. That's just like, even though this grows in, it's gone. And even though it looks quite full, it's like I usually keep it like trimmed a bit shorter so you can kind of see more of the sparseness, I guess, or like where the spots are. Yeah, I have alopecia areata. So for me, it's my hair has always looked like this. I've never been completely bald and I've never had a full head of hair. Like I've always had these spots missing. And sometimes my hair will grow. And like when I was pregnant with my son last year, or no, 2 years ago now, my hair grew in all the way. It was like a bob basically. And then the moment I had it, like all fell out. So and I was just like, I used to know, like I went my whole life through all the times my hair grew in and fell out, grew and fell out. I never even thought of shaving my head because it
Mhm.
was such a scary thought to take a razor and just do it and
Yeah.
go all in. Um, and then when was it? It was probably right before the pandemic hit. So like beginning of 2020 or somewhere in there when we had moved down to Charlotte and we were living there. My hair was in this, like, it was falling out again, and it was just not looking good, and it would just make me feel like terrible to look at it in the mirror. Like I didn't feel pretty. Like I just felt like it was like stringy long hair pieces, whatever. So I just told my husband, I was like, just shave it off. I was like, just shave the thing. Like I don't want to look at it anymore. Like I just can't feel like the strands of hair falling out. And so he
Yeah.
shaved my head. And I looked in the mirror and I thought I would hate it. Like I thought I was like just doing this as like a thing because I couldn't stand how it looked anymore. And I loved it. I was like, oh my God, I look so good. I was like, oh my God, I love this. Like, why haven't I done this before? I looked like so, can I swear? Like, I look so
Yep.
badass.
Go
Like, I
ahead.
felt so good. And so I'm like, oh my God. And even he was like, this looks really good on you. Like, this looks awesome. And so since that point, I was like, you know what? That's it. Like, if it's growing in, great. The moment I feel like, it's going through that cycle of falling out, I just shave it off and I'm very happy. Like, because I just feel so good and so confident, rocking that look. And I think it also came like that at that time, I had already, when was it? Like, I was already working on Shreya's story for such a long time. And I was already at this like really strong point in like the strongest I've ever felt about myself living with alopecia. And
Mhm.
so I think I was just ready to step into the next phase of like being able to own it even more
Yeah.
than I had
Like a
before.
full
So,
acceptance. Yeah.
like a full, yeah, fully in, like just, no longer letting it hold me back in any way. And that was a huge turning point for me, a huge one. But before that, I mean, I had tried treatments, like I had tried like growing up, like especially, we tried the Indian remedies and the
Mhm.
home, like, oh, what is it called? Like the homeopathic
Yeah. Those like
medicine,
little pills.
the little
Yeah.
sugar pills and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah.
Like I tried a fair amount of things, like different things like people would say to put in my hair and I just, I think I grew tired of it very quickly. And I
Mhm.
also feel like because maybe it's my personality, like I just it didn't it was never like something like it didn't matter at a point. Like I was just like I'd rather not do these things. Like it just bugged me to do them, like to keep things in my hair and then feel like my head feeling gross, like with like creams or with whatever. And so I'm like, you know what? Like I told my mom, like I think it was in middle school itself, I was like, I can't do these treatments anymore. Like I just can't do them. I won't do them. And so she's like, okay. Like I was just doing them because you want to try it. Like if you want to do it, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's all good. And so I just wore wigs and if my hair grew in, I'd stop wearing the wigs, I get a haircut and I'd be good. When it started falling out again, I'd get a hair wig, throw it on, and it was just kind of the way I lived with it. Um and so yeah, I feel like even though it bothered me growing up, like I would look at my friend's hair and I would like feel like, oh, you know, I feel like my dad's like really strong role model, position in my life. Like I think, and the combination of how like my parents kind of supported me and that, I don't think it ever fully consumed me.
Yeah.
Where I felt like, okay, I have to cure, like I have to fix this. So
Yeah.
I just kind of like did my wigs and that was it.
I think that's such a good example of like really good parenting there because I mean, children are sponges and they're going to pick up off of you and your energy. And if you make them feel like there's something wrong with them or that they should be covering this up and they can't tell people, like that's going to play into their psyche for the rest of their lives. Like it's going to take a lot of like work on themselves to get over that kind of trauma. So you're very blessed the fact that your father had that attitude towards his own alopecia. I think it's probably what was instrumental for you to
Yeah,
be able to accept it.
I do feel very blessed. Like I feel like I was having this condition, like I had the right tools growing up. And so yeah, while it was like it sucked, like I couldn't like wigs at that time, wigs were not what they are now. Like they were not these like really sleek, like HD lace, like
Oh
I
my
don't know
gosh,
what
they have
jazz.
some amazing wigs out there right now.
Amazing.
Holy.
I'm telling you, like this is like the golden period to like
Yeah.
having growing up with alopecia. You have you like tattoo eyebrows that you can't even tell. You have like beautiful lace wigs that like so much is available. When I
Yeah.
was growing up, the wigs were these bulky, really heavy, like weighted down
Oh
things.
my
In the
gosh.
summertime, you would feel like you're suffocating in them because they were so hot and
Yeah.
so heavy and so thick. And you couldn't even like style them in any way.
Yeah.
Like I could do a low pony or I leave it open.
And
Like
that's
that
it.
was it. Those are the two
Yeah.
options
There's
I
no,
had.
yeah.
Because the construction itself, like you could, if you did like a half up something, it would, and then there was no way to like secure it properly on your head. So if
Oh.
you didn't have hair to attach like clips to or something, that
Oh.
thing was coming off. Let me tell you, my
Oh my
wig fell
gosh.
off in gym class
Oh no.
in front of the entire class because I fell up. Remember like the rope climbing, like
Hmm.
obstacle course, and the last thing was like climbing the rope. So I was doing the last thing, climbing the rope, and I fell off the rope and I fell it like instead of landing on my feet, I tumbled backward and the thing just came off and I grabbed it and I ran out of the gym because I didn't know
Oh.
what else to do. And I just
Yeah.
sat in the locker room like like a statue. I just sat there. I threw it on my head and I just sat there.
Oh
And
my
then
gosh.
a fellow student came and checked on me and the gym teacher came and checked on me and I just like went on with my day. But and then it fell off in the middle of a picnic once, which was like even more mortifying because it was an Indian community picnic, and so you know how Indian communities are, and so I was playing tug of war, which is hindsight 2020. You probably should not be doing things like that, wearing a wig at that time, but I was like the anchor of the tug of war, and
Oh, okay.
the side lost and I was attached to the string and
Yeah.
they were like in full momentum, like trying to win this game. And I was just dragged like I don't know how, not very far because everyone was like, stop, 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 like like my whole family was there, everyone. And like my best friends were there and everything. So, but it was mortifying. I mean, it was like so mortifying. Yeah.
So in terms of like what you want to do with your publishing company, like what direction you're going to take things in, because you have two, right? You have one and then you just formed a new one as well. Um,
Yeah, so I published Shreya's Variant Style under my a company that I created called Modern Miracle Books. And as of this year, I actually am joining up with another independent publisher, Ambika. Her company's name is Yali Books, and we've formed a company together called Suhani Parikh. It's already launched. It's out there. You can check out our website. But our two companies are going to become imprints of this larger parent company, and we have so many incredible plans for future imprints and the books that we're now working on together and resources for teachers. Our focus is really on education and getting into classrooms, libraries, school libraries, and really driving home these messages that our books are all about. And each book is really intended to start a conversation, a movement,
Mhm.
you know, about a particular topic. So it's it's really exciting work. We're very, very excited to be doing it.
Well, I'm really excited for you, and I can't wait to see like what all the things that you guys are going to do.
Thank you so much. That means
You're
the world to
welcome.
me.
Okay, so let everybody know where they can find your books, where they can find more about you, just everything.
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram at Modern Miracle Books, and our website is modernmiraclebooks.com. You can kind of, if you go there, you'll be able to like find out about everything. You can order my books there. You can find my books anywhere on Amazon or wherever else you buy books. You'll be able to find us there. And yeah, I hope you follow along in my little journey.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This was really wonderful.